welcome to all who are here face to face, and welcome to all who've joined us online. We're glad that everyone is here in fellowship. My name is Bryan. My pronouns are he, him, for those that may not know that. And I just wanted to make a couple of announcements and then turn it over to others that might have them. Next Sunday, well, first of all, congratulations for getting here on time. Although springtime is when we're usually right. Next Sunday, Sana is coming to preach to us again, with us, be with us, speak with us, whatever we want to call it. And again, for those of you that may not know, we had some speakers lined up, but because a lot of my colleagues are in the southeastern part of the United States, who I had scheduled in because of the hurricanes, a lot of them have had to postpone. So I'm stepping back and trying to get people in so that you're not just stuck with me every Sunday. So Sana was gracious enough to come back and say, hey, I love your congregation. So she'll be back next Sunday. And then on the 24th, Shelly, who's been out of the country for a while and different kinds of things, which I'm very happy that she was able to take a break, she'll be here on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So we filled some slots, but if you have anybody that you know that you'd like to invite to come and speak, I'd be happy to entertain that. Just contact me or have them contact me through the website or whatever, on my email, and we'll get that straightened out. Starting in January, we have some people locally that would be here, and so we'll see what happens. But so we have that going on in November. Our first Friday PM service is on November the 15th, which is not this Friday, but the next Friday. And so we're looking forward to a really nice sort of informal spiritual time. If you have a piece of poetry or a song or anything else like, you'd like to share, get in touch with me. We're organizing that service now. It's just poetry and music, and there will be a brief commentary and discussion and things like that. This particular Friday service is going to be about that in-between time between, well, today's a good example of that in-between time. Cold, but not too cold. Wet, but not snow, that kind of thing, and centering around earth-based traditions. And speaking of Friday services, our winter solstice service is December the 20th. Again, we're going with the third Friday of the month, and that is in process as well. So if you are interested in participating or being in the choir, shameless plug, please get in touch with Chuck about the choir. But if you want to be a part of the service, light candles, do a reading, because remember on the solstice we try to do our interpretation of a festival of lessons and carols. So we'll have lessons and then songs that are around the solstice, so just get in touch with me. That's all the announcements I have, I think, for now. Anybody else have something to contribute?
Outside, you'll notice several boxes of books.
Out in the hallway, not outside.
Well, outside this room. And I'm still in Alaska. So outside this room. There's boxes of books that were part of our church library. Anybody is welcome to peruse and take any of those books. Otherwise, we will be donating those.
Women's group next Saturday at my place, and I think I sent the address to everybody in the email, but if you have any questions, contact me.
We're having choir right after this, well, not directly after the service, about noon, for about an hour. So anybody who wants to join in with that, I'm hoping it'll work out for us to sing "Circle Around for Freedom" next week as part of the service. That would be awesome. I think it's pretty close to being ready to go. So.
Awesome.
November 10th is a Sunday, is next Sunday. In the afternoon, our Common Good group is going to meet at the mosque, the Burnsville Mosque, for discussions. So all are welcome for that. And if you need any more details, see Chuck or myself.
It's an interfaith group.
Yeah.
Nice discussions.
take the time to share another couple of announcements that I forgot to write on the notes. One is this, it's more of like an open invitation, but every single year in my family, we've always had a Friendsgiving, and that's because Duran and I have no living parents, and Josh's parents are disenfranchised. So over the course of the last many years, we always have the Thanksgiving thing. And so if you know anybody who cannot or is not able to go anywhere and they want to be a part of a traditional Thanksgiving meal, we'll have that at 2 o'clock on Thanksgiving. And of course, any of you are invited as well, but the thing of it is that there are people that just don't have a place to be. And we've had some very interesting times, and people show up, and some wonderful conversations and fellowship. So if you just happen to run across anybody and you don't feel, necessarily the person that you want to be the person to invite them, you can just contact me and I can send out an invite. But I just don't like to think that there are people out there that don't have a place to be. And we love to cook and entertain, and we have a 25-pound pasture-raised turkey, and that's more than 3 people can eat. So it was a gift from one of my farmer friends. I owe her 3 chickens, but that's a different story.
Brian, will it be potluck? People bring.
Well, you can bring things, but we usually have everything. We've already got everything purchased. I'm turned into a Minnesotan. I've already bought my French style green beans and my cream of mushroom soup. I mean, it's there, right? It's ready. What was now I forgot the other. Go ahead, Chuck.
I don't know, this is spur of the moment, but if anybody doesn't want to watch the election returns by themselves, or wants to watch it with somebody, you can let me know and we can gather to our house.
Watch party.
Yeah. Until 10 o'clock or so.
All night?
Okay, remember that
You can't stay all night.
Gore Bush election. We don't want to keep it going, a party going until December, right?
Right.
Well, maybe we do.
They want to do that.
The last little announcement, again, I didn't put in my notes, and I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn, but I've had just kind of an informal discussion with many people about December, and let's just say we've got some special themes coming on in December that have to do with the season of Advent. Season and liturgical colors and things like that, part of our rituals, and they have always been adapted from earth-based traditions. So for example, for those of you that may be nervous, this is actually turned the right way. My stole is white because today is All Saints. Most churches are celebrating All Saints today, except for the Roman Catholics. And so the color liturgically is white. In December, it's typically the season of Advent. So we're going to celebrate Advent UU style. And each Sunday, that means there's going to be a different theme. We'll have different speakers, and just wanted to, kind of advertise for that. We've got some special things coming up in December. All right, any final announcements? Okay, with that, I invite everyone to take a deep, slow, gentle breath. Separate yourself from the chaos of the world around us as much as possible, and meditate on this prelude.
Today. Let's do it. Let's be nice today.
I invite everyone to remain seated so that we can see the screen and join together in our opening words. Welcome, all you saints. Yes, you are saints. All of you are saints. For it is not by perfection that we are sainted. Rather, it is by our actions.
It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our presence. It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our giving.
It is not by perfection that we are sainted. Rather, it is by our living.
Indeed, it is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our gathering together in collective love, with love and through love.
As saints, we continue to work as we become a more fully nurturing, welcoming, healing, and faithful community. Welcome, all you saints.
We stand together with our fellow saints in love and honor, moving forward in our collective journey to bring about loving and momentous change.
Therefore, in the spirit of All Saints' Day, we light this chalice together and say,
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
I now invite you, as you are able, to rise and join us in our opening hymn, which is number 103. 103.
I'll play through.
Oh, one more verse? Yeah, one more verse.
Okay.
And when the strife is fierce, the conflict long, steals on the hill, distant triumph song, and hearts are brave again, and loves are strong. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
always interesting. I've been singing and playing that song for 45 years, and I just assume everybody knows all the verses and all of that stuff. So, but we did it together, and that's the most important part. This is the time during our service where we pause and commemorate, honor, respect, and just take time to be intentional about a part of our wider beloved community. Election Hero Day is a nonpartisan national celebration recognizing the tremendous contribution that election officials, their staff, and poll workers make to ensure a safe, secure voting experience for all Americans. Taking place on Monday, November the 4th, 2024, the day before Election Day, nonprofits, churches, business leaders, brands, public officials, and more will unite to honor the election heroes in our communities. The Election Hero Day organizers, along with the leadership in the wider UUA, have asked congregations who are willing to openly honor, commemorate, and bless all of those who work to ensure free and safe elections, because this will certainly help boost election official morale ahead of Election Day and send a clear message to the public that we support our friends and neighbors who play such a vital role in preserving our democracy, many of whom are in this congregation. In Minnesota, many of these important people are called election judges, and in other states they are called poll workers. Therefore, let us join together in hearing and taking to heart these words of blessing. We are grateful for election heroes who have been steadfastly working to provide safe, secure, and accessible elections. Today, we join other congregations and community groups, business leaders, elected officials, nonprofits, and other enthusiastic people across the U.S. by celebrating and offering our blessing on them as this election approaches. We recognize that Election Heroes Day on Monday is an important time to offer our gratitude for all who help us carry out our citizenship duty in a safe, orderly, free, and unhindered manner. We offer our blessing to all of these people, part of the wider beloved community and universal sainthood of social justice warriors, because we know that the long-term success of our elections is critical, and that it is the very least we can do to share our collective appreciation and support to our neighbors who continue to power our elections nationwide. Elections are community-driven. We take this time to intentionally pause, bless, and give thanks to our friends, family, colleagues, church members, and neighbors who have taken the time and effort to ensure that our elections run smoothly on Tuesday. And that was adapted from the Election Day Hero website. If you want to find out more, just Google Election Hero Day. Now during our service, we pause again to offer an opportunity for you to come forward and share a joy and or concern and light a candle. And at the end, I'll light a final candle for all of those unspoken joys and concerns. And those of you that are online, if you have a joy or concern, just buzz in and let us know, and Alice will light a candle for you.
Thanks for the reminder.
See how I worked that in?
Well, I have one. Not many people know, or probably, I don't know if anybody can recognize me. I haven't shaved my beard in 12 years. This is a concern because I miss it a lot. It needs to come back. And then,
My concern is for Miss Annabelle. She broke her right pinky toe in gymnastics this week.
Oh my
I
goodness.
was trying to do a handstand,
Yeah.
and I just
Oh, that's too bad.
and Steph also has a pinched nerve in her lower
Yeah, something's
neck
happening
right
over
now.
here.
So.
Good
But we
times.
still made it.
I'm in solidarity with you about the beard thing.
Right?
I don't
It's
know
been
if I can
12
do
years.
All right, I light this candle as for joy and gratitude for my life as I had my birthday yesterday, and I'm starting my 77th year around my orbit around the sun of the new year.
I will light a final candle for all those joys and concerns that remain unspoken. May we know that whatever befalls us in life, that we are held in the loving embrace of this community. And now we say together for all of these joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken,
We hold you in our hearts.
Right, this is 2 weeks in a row I have 2 readings, but I think that they're really cool. So the first reading is called It's Possible. Reminds me of Cinderella, but that's a different story, by Rainer Maria Rilke. It's possible I am pushing through solid rock in flint-like layers as the ore lies alone. I am such a long way in, I see no way through, and no space. Everything is close to my face, and everything close to my face is stone. I don't have much knowledge yet in grief, so this massive darkness makes me small. You be the master. Make yourself fierce. Break in. Then your great transforming will happen to me, and my great grief cry will happen to you. Our second reading is called AllSaints Prayer. It's by Reverend Susan Brown at UU Minister. Hear this prayer. Holy One of blessing, as we gather on this All Saints' Day, let us call into our minds and hearts all those saints who blessed our lives. Those family saints, spouses and partners and mothers and fathers, grandparents, great-grandparents, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and more, even non-biological family. Saints who modeled living for us, who stay with us through the days and years and all times of need and joy. We give thanks. Those friend saints, childhood and adulthood friends, those young and not so young, tea time and coffee time and mealtime friends who listen and cry and laugh with us, we give thanks. Those work saints, friends, co-workers, bosses and employees, and fellow travelers, those mentors and teachers who are with us when goals are hard to name and when trying to work with dignity and integrity seems so very hard to do. We give thanks. Those community saints, those who serve, those elected or to be elected, those educators and manufacturers and nurturers whose presence makes our daily life easier and more pleasant. And for those who toil and strive to bring visions of justice, equality, and peace to our world, we give thanks. Those unnamed, unknown saints, those who overcome obstacles and teach us how to overcome obstacles, those whose presence reminds us that we are called to do more than we ever thought possible. Those who bear burdens and let us assist them in the bearing of those burdens. Those who give willingly and unselfishly. Those who demonstrate strength, courage, and wisdom in the face of pain and tragedy. We give thanks. Today, we are called to recognize all saints. Therefore, let us learn to recognize the sainthood in all others and the sainthood in ourselves. Blessed be. So, I struggle with this time change thing. I struggle also politically because I was a member of the Sunshine Protection Act Committee in Florida that advanced that to Congress, that it never got looked at, to stop doing this and just keep daylight savings time all year long. So I'm bitter a little bit sometimes. I'm just confessing. I mean, it's All Saints. It's time to confess. I also recognize in people that are pet parents, or in this case maybe livestock parents, they don't see daylight savings time ending. So Storm woke me up an hour early. Who gets an extra hour of sleep? Not me. And my favorite meme of this season is, set your roosters back. That doesn't work either, just so you know. But it is out of a sense of what I call profound duty, that despite the challenges of the change of time, I tirelessly got up this morning to let the chickens out and to take my dog out, and I did so with half a smile. But it was out of that profound duty that I understood, and I knew it was coming, so it was part of the presentation, because I do this every year. Well, the chickens not so much. This is the first year in a long time for that. But All Saints Day, talking about it in the UU, even though we sang this hymn that's been around for years and years and years, that almost every Protestant church sings today. So that's kind of cool that we're all in solidarity around the world. We're all singing the same hymn. The words might be a little different, but you know, it's okay. In that spirit of All Saints, what does it mean, all of this rhetoric about how we're all saints? All of us, each one of us. And where does that come from? Well, if you want to take my theology classes, I could teach you all about how it evolved out of Reformed theology. And I'm going to teach you a little bit more about theology, because that's kind of our theme for this month. It was kind of began last month and this month. It just bleeds over sometimes. But the idea is that Martin Luther, and I said this on my blog this week, came forward on Halloween in 1517 and posted his 95 Theses, basically because he wanted to get married to a nun, but everybody else said, oh, it's the Reformation of the church that happened. And so that happened. But in that, he created a theology called the priesthood of all believers. This was a radical theology for the Christian church, because up until that theology came about, in order to get your sins forgiven, you had to go to a priest and confess, and the priest had to pray on your behalf to get you forgiven of your sins. You couldn't do it yourself. Martin Luther said, and Martin Luther was a character. If anybody's ever studied Martin Luther, you'd know this, but if you haven't, read some of the stuff where he calls the Pope a donkey, and it wasn't a donkey he used as the term. You know, like, he was a character. I am in solidarity with characters. I'm a character too. But I don't think I was audacious enough in some parts of my life when I look back at what Martin Luther said. But anyway, he said that we all are priests. We all have the ability to speak to the divine on our own behalf, because our agency is important and just as critical, crucial, and as prominent as any other priests. Well, that got him into a lot of trouble, but he was already in trouble and he didn't care. So later on down the road, in postmodern theological discourse, somebody in a seminary somewhere, probably a UU person, said, well, what about the sainthood of all believers? In fact, what about the sainthood of everybody, since we're universalists? What about that? That sounds amazing. We're all saints. You're thinking to yourself right now, many of you, oh, if you only really knew me, I'm not a saint. Well, I'm thinking that at least. Maybe you are. I don't know. What does it mean, then, to be a saint? Well, I'm not going to let you off easy, because one of my most important ideas for myself is that profound sense of duty that I referred to earlier, where I got up with at least half a smile, I hope I did, and did what I needed to do for all of these creatures that I love out of a sense of profound duty. Now, you all know that I teach, and one of my favorite classes I teach is ethics, because one of my degrees has I did my master's thesis in one of my degrees on ethics. And ethics and morality are almost as taboo to talk about as God in the UU Church. But ethics is the foundation of where we get the idea of duty. In fact, W.D. Ross, one of the ethicists and philosophers that I teach about, and I personally embrace a lot of what he said that there are 7 prima facie duties. Now, prima facie means something else in the legal world, but in the philosophical world, it means do these first. And these are the most important that are universal thoughts. Now, I'm not going to sit here and bore you with all of them, fidelity, benevolence, non-maleficence, all of these 7 things. Again, I could teach you a class on that if you're ever interested. But the idea is that as saints, we are called to act in our daily lives and our weekly lives as people with a profound sense of duty. It is not an accident that it happens to be All Saints Day before the election, or at least I don't think it is. I mean, it always falls the first Sunday somewhere in November. And All Saints, not Election Day, obviously. And that is one of the duties that the UU has embraced, especially with the UU the Vote, many of whom of you in this congregation have worked so hard with and around the Unitarian Universalist Association throughout the United States. But that's only one of our duties. What does it mean? You've got to ask yourselves, what sense of profound duty do you have? And it should be plural, probably, right? What profound senses of duty do you have in your lives? I can't tell you. You know what they are. And even more so, the question is, why do you have those particular profound senses of duty? Now, philosophical existentialism, was not popular with the church, not as popular as Martin Luther was with the Roman Catholics. Because it said, when it was first articulated by philosophers of the modern age, that you really aren't created with a purpose in mind. Really, you have to discover and even invent your purpose in life. Now, we may not all believe all of that. In fact, the way that I like to talk about ethics and philosophy is that I take a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, and then I try to invent what works for me in my ethical and moral life. I try to invent what are the areas of my profound senses of duty. One of my favorite phrases, as you know, is let's go make the world a better place, change the world, right? That is, in essence, one of my own profound senses of duty. Because some teacher told me when I was a kid that I could change the world, and I believed it. And so as a teacher, you've heard me say, I taught my kids, and I still get little messages. People Google me, and they say, that change the world thing that you taught me 23 years ago? I'm like, thanks for making me feel old. But I still do it. That's why I'm in this place. In fact, I was talking about this the other day. The very first musical that I produced, because I was an assistant principal for a visual and performing arts middle school, was The Wiz. And I had an extremely amazing time producing this musical. It was also quite frustrating at times working with a bunch of middle schoolers trying to produce a musical, but that's part of the profound sense of duty I had as a teacher, right? Because that's the only way you could survive as a middle school teacher, is to have a profound sense of duty. But what's interesting is that the student that played the character of the Wiz had a internal quest that he was going to be on Broadway. And he had the makings of doing that, like literally. But when he went to college and was in theater and musical theater and performed in college, he acquired a new profound sense of duty. And that was, he believed that he could change the world, but the way that he needed to change the world was to get a degree in political science and to work to try to get people elected who could actually assist him in his belief about how to change the world. And I still keep in touch with him to this day. He works on the Kamala Harris campaign today. And I'm proud that he discovered that profound sense of duty from something that I told him. I mean, it's way more than that, but let me believe what I want to believe, right? It'll change the world. These are the tidbits that you hold on to, because teaching is not necessarily always the most rewarding career, except for those moments. But one of the things that it all makes me think about is this idea of ethics. And what does it mean to have a profound sense of duty, and where does that philosophy and theology come from, and why should it be important to us? Well, this is where I'm going. You see, some people would agree, and some people would disagree. There are three types of morality, essentially. There's virtue morality, there's consequential morality, and there's deontological morality. See, you learned a bunch of theological and philosophical words today. Why is that important? Virtue morality is stuff that Plato and Socrates talked about. It means that you should be a better person because it's cool and good to be a better person. And virtues feel good. Kindness you do because it makes you feel good. It's all here. I do things because it makes me feel better, and it's good to be good. But it's this little wall. I'm doing it for me because it makes me feel good. That's virtue morality. Consequential morality is basically what shaped the Christian church for years and years and millennia and millennia. It is that I'm going to do what I need to do today so that when I die, I go to heaven. Because if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, I won't go to heaven. Well, you threw that out because we're universalists, so that doesn't work for us. Although, as I've said, we all do certain things that are combinations of these different types of morality. We like to be good because it makes us feel good. There's nothing wrong with that. And we do certain things to get that carrot at the end. I mean, some of us get up and go to work so we can get a paycheck, right? Or we did before we retired. And it wasn't always necessarily what you wanted to do that day, right? So we are consequentialists at times. But my favorite type of morality is deontological morality. And that is deontology, or the word deon, is actually a word in Latin and Greek both that means duty. It means that I do things out of a profound sense of duty because I want to make other people's lives better along with my own life. And I also want to make the earth a better place. Well, I added that because that's what I do. I get up every day and I try to think to myself, how am I going to change the world today? That sounds like one of those public speaking events where I'm in politics, but literally that's what I try to do. I'm not always successful. In fact, I'm not as successful as I think I am usually, but I at least have the duty on my mind. It's like A for effort, right? God bless him, he tried. Those are those terms, very deontological. We just may not have known that term. Some of us did. The idea is that we do things out of our duty, or we have to figure it out along the way what our duties are. What is your duty? What are your duties? Well, that's what sainthood is all about to me. What are the things that you feel called to? And what are the things that you do daily that you consider to be your duty? And do you do them just because of something that happens in the end? Are you doing them because of a carrot? Are you doing them because it makes you feel good? Are you doing them to change the world and make somebody else's life better? The first poem that I read was a little dark, but that's why I started with that one and not the prayer, because it's the idea that if you allow yourself to go through it, if you allow yourself to accept your profound senses of duty, even if they're not pleasant all the time, then you are inviting other people in to say, you can do it. Like last Sunday, the leaf that held on. You can do it. You can get through this. I've been telling a lot of people recently, you can get through the election. I promise you can do this. Whether you like it or not. You're going to get through the election. And whatever happens, we're going to get through it together. But that's only one of the struggles of the duties that we have, right? What are some other things? And again, I may end up asking you more questions and answering, but that's part of my personality, and that's part of why I'm here. I gave you kind of an assignment last week to take time each day to think about somebody who's passed on. Well, I'm not going to give you a daily assignment, enough homework. I'm just going to give you a charge of what are some duties that you would like to have that you don't feel like you're following through with. For me, it's a virtue duty. I'm trying to go to the gym. I've lost a lot of weight and got healthy, but it's hard to motivate myself to go to the gym when I'm getting up with the chickens, literally, and working and toiling all day long on the farm. It's like, I'm getting exercise. Well, not exactly, you know? But that's a virtue kind of a thing. I'm doing that to make myself feel good, right? And it's okay to do all three of those things. What duties, ask yourself, what duties may you need to be doing that you're not doing? What challenges do you need to institute for yourself to move you to the next level of wherever you want to be? And why? Ask yourself as a member of this congregation, what duty may you want to be doing? Like, let's say, joining the choir and coming to choir practice. Well, I have to take shameless plugs where I can put them. Or volunteering to be at the winter solstice service, even if you don't participate directly as a leader, you can still be there. Or call somebody who is not here that you're concerned about, who usually comes. Because sometimes people just need someone to reach out to them, not for the purposes of getting them back to come back to church, because that's not why we're really here. Because some people just need to feel like they're cared about. And it's not just needing to feel like they're cared about, they need to be cared about. When I was a teacher, and I know I use these examples all the time, but it's a huge part of my life. Fellow teachers understand. I would hear teachers say, well, he's just trying to get attention. That's why he's doing that. And I'm like, well, let's give him attention. What's wrong with that? And they'd look at me strange. Well, I do the same thing with my dog. Duran will say, well, she's just trying to get attention. Well, she's a puppy. She's supposed to have attention and scratch me up, right? That's what she's supposed to do. Thank you, Kathy, for the ideas. I appreciate that. Got to dull her nails down a little bit. But when we take the time to show people that we really care, to look into deontology, that's the key word today to frame your mindset. There's two things that I always talk about, mindset and heart set. And they really are two important pieces of a future presentation that I'll talk about, mindset and heart set. But I'd like to tag that and entice you to come back. But really thinking about how you can show that you care. Because I know you do, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be a person who comes and takes the time to be a part of a congregation that cares so much about the world and other people if you didn't care yourself. Let's reach out to people and see what's going on. People that we've not seen. And likewise, I know it borders on evangelism, Alice, but what about reaching out to people that you know that could use some community? And I'm not saying that for the purpose of church growth, I'm saying that in terms of your deontological calling to make the world a better place by actually caring about people. Now, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I guess when people know that I'm a pastor, which is why I try to introduce that late in the conversation when I meet a new person, they feel they can tell me anything. And that they can, but like, okay, I'm not at work right now, so you don't have to tell me your whole life story right now. Call me tomorrow. But one of the things is that people come and they share with me what's going on, even if they just call me or send me an email. And I've said this before, my undergraduate students would email me and say, you asked me how I'm doing. And I really did that because I want them to write in their journals. But sometimes they need to write an email. And I respond. And they're saying, I'm lonely. I don't know how to make friends. I feel like I'm alone in this world and that nobody cares about me. These 18, 19, 20, 21, and some 40 and 45-year-old people in my seminary classes tell me this all the time. And I'm like, where are the people in their lives who should be contacting them and saying, hey, how are you doing? Now, I exacerbated that time to talk about caring for other people, but that's only one example of one of the duties that I try to do. I try to make sure I reach out to people when I can. And I know we're all busy. But there are other things that we could be doing. One of the things that I really would love to see us do as a congregation, and I'm not sure about the history of doing this, is that right now I've been called by several people in the community who are leaders that say their food stores for people who are hungry are very low. One of the lowest times on record, food pantries right now. Well, do you have a couple non-perishable food items in your kitchen that you could probably give to somebody who's hungry? These are the prima facie duties that I think are important. The ones that we should be doing. Like if somebody's hungry, feed them. I mean, I don't always agree with the Pope, but as I've said before, the Pope said, first you pray for the hungry, and then what? You feed them. Duty is about action. What are some other things that we could do as a congregation? Well, we're not going to have that discussion right now because this sermon's getting really long. But I feel like it's important to talk about duty as a part of your sainthood. It's great to say, welcome all you saints. You're all saints in the eyes of the divine and each other. Now let's get to work. May it be so. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Glad
Saint.
you enjoyed it.
Whose birthday
Saint
was it?
Kathleen, yes.
Yes. So we have time for a little bit of reflection. Oh, did I hear the voice of God? Been waiting that for a long time. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, this, as much a question as it, let's
Sure.
talk to me more about duty. Okay, when you were talking about, what was
Be
the
careful
first-
what you ask for. No.
the first kind of
Morality,
morality?
virtue morality.
Okay, when you start talking about duty, I mean, I can easily think of virtue and I can easily think of the middle kind, prescription or whatever you call it. But when I started thinking of duty, I mean, I was trying to think of things that I do out of a feeling of duty, and they all feel good to do, and I would put them in the first category, virtue. And it was only when you started mentioning duty as something you don't like to do, I went, okay, you know, and I started ticking off in my mind all these duties that I don't do because they don't feel good to do them, and they only feel good when they're done.
Like the dishes. No.
Yeah, kind of, well, I mean, is that the difference between duty and virtue? That virtue feels good to do and duty doesn't? I mean,
Well, they're all types of duties. It's just that what duties. My belief system. This is me. I'm not telling everybody else will believe this way, but it should be a balance among the three types of moralities and the three types of duties. You have a duty to yourself too. I could preach about everything, but we'd be here for a few hours. You have a duty to make yourself happy and to take care of yourself. That's a virtue duty, right? So they're all duties, you see. But what I'm saying is that the deontological duties are the ones where we do things that aren't always comfortable, not because of the carrot at the end, that would be consequentialist, but because it's the right thing to do, and it may be uncomfortable, but we're trying to make the world a better place, like making sure that you sort the recycling. I mean, that's a real benign example, but it's an important example, because in my community, they don't pick up the recycles. I have to sort them and then take them to different places. Well, why am I doing that? Maybe I'm doing it to make myself feel better, but does it really make me feel better? Not always, but I'm doing it because it's better for the planet. So that's what the ontology, there are all three different types of duties. You have a duty to make yourself feel good, and you have a duty to make yourself happy. It doesn't always work. It's hard to live in joy. Although it'd be great to have a political leader that lives in joy rather than fear, but that's for after church. Right?
Yeah.
But that's really what I was saying, is that there's different types of duties, but there are unpleasant duties that you do because of what you get at the end, like go to work or other things like that. But what about those duties that maybe a lot of extra work, but it doesn't really do anything for you? It's what it does for others in the earth that matters. That's deontological duty.
I can't help but think that most of those, if you have a duty you really, really don't want to do, and you do it, and you feel good because you didn't want to do it. And
it feels good
Did
when
it
you're
anyway.
done.
Yeah, so they can overlap, certainly. I mean, that's the reason I said take a little bit of each one of them. I wasn't saying we should, like, back in the day when philosophy was unfolding, W.D. Ross would say this is the only time. But we're out of those stages. We like to pick from what works for us, but it makes us feel good. But at the same time, why does it make us feel good? Because it actually made a difference in the world.
I think back to when I was in school age, and I was a terrible student, and I knew there was a duty to do my homework and stuff like that. I didn't do it, and it made me miserable. And I didn't really learn the lesson until I went to tech school and was paying my own tuition. just do the assignments right away and do them on time and do the quizzes, you know, and read the material, you know, do all that early as possible.
What a breakthrough.
And it's like, why didn't I learn this as an 8-year-old or whatever, you know?
Everything in its due time, Chuck.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I always talk about how it took me a little while, longer than others, to find the UU. But I'm here,
Yes.
right? So it takes others some time. Well, this congregation, oh, go ahead.
You said in the beginning that I think you said ethics and I think morality are almost as unwelcome as God in the UU church, something like that.
But sometimes talking about
Talking
it.
about
Yeah,
it. And I thought, that surprised me because I would think that talking about ethics and morality would be quite high because that's,
I think that it is, but I think that I meant to say using the words ethics and morality is what's dangerous, not talking about ethics and morality. And I don't think it's dangerous in this congregation, but I know colleagues who say, oh, I don't even mention the word ethics. Because it gives people, well, because of those of us that grew up in churches where ethics meant something different, it
see, I
hurts.
didn't grow up in a church, so that's
Yeah,
why
see,
I
that's,
put
see,
that
that's what,
together.
and we're in a different place, most of us now, but like it does trigger some people.
I see,
Trauma, in fact, sometimes.
I see.
Well, I think, and I hope this will clarify and not muddy the waters, but when I teach about moral development and how we teach children the difference from right and wrong, I talk about those same 3 types of morality, but I use different words and I give different examples. And so the consequential ethics is the avoiding punishment. Very simplistic, you're avoiding punishment. And the virtuous is gaining reward. And then the deontological is doing it because it's the right thing to do, right? And so the talking about ethics and morality in UU churches is frowned upon in some ways because we're not talking about doing it the right thing because of almighty authority that is going to punish you if you don't do it, or you're going to get the reward of heaven if you do the right thing. It's because you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. That you're creating a better world, you're not harming people, you're doing it for not to get the reward or not to avoid punishment because it's the right thing to do. I don't know if that helps, but that's how I saw it.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
Right.
We could certainly finish this conversation, or probably will never be finished, but we could continue it at another time. And again, this is a great time to plug religious education as we are working on trying to get that going. I'd love to explore these topics more because the UUA is known in academic circles as a deontological denomination.
I think we won't even use the chairs.
All right, so let's go ahead and join together in our closing hymn, number 295, and stand if you are able, 295.
I don't know if we've ever done this one before, starting in one, just close it down a little bit.
after we sit and experience the postlude, I invite you to think about your duties. And guess what I'm going to say? Change the world. May it be so. So feel free to stay around to discuss around treats. And then also don't forget there's choir practice at noon.
Yes. I brought a lunch today. I like the
People did like the blues.
Yeah. I don't have the right walk.
The second one, I put the first one.
Expectations always. Oh, you were doing the first one?
Yeah.